Hey guys, this is John. I'm playing ChessBrain2014 in the 15-minute pool on ICC. I'm going to open with c4, the English opening, and he plays c6. Let's play knight f3 on move 2. In the event of d5, I think I'll play this gambit line with g3. This is like a anti-Slav type of line. Plays e6. I can play bishop g2 and try to gambit this pawn, but I think I'm going to play it safe and play queen c2 and just defend it. I prefer this setup. It's a little safer. You're not immediately losing this pawn in all cases. So let's just castle. Looks like black's choosing a solid setup. Yeah, he brings the bishop to d6 as expected. I've faced this line a couple times, and I think there's a couple ways to handle it. I think probably the best way to do it is play d4 and then knight bd2 and then eventually e4. So given that he's not really throwing up any obstacles to me playing d4, I'll do that. He castles, now knight bd2. And I wonder if this is the same position. Yeah, it's virtually the same position I had against this guy, Chess Tempo 2, in the 15-minute pool. I played e4 in that game, and I'll do it again here. See if he trades a bunch of times on e4. In that game, I think my opponent took on e4, knight takes, and then played bishop e7. If it's the same position I'm thinking of. It might be different. But what's going on here? Basically, like I'm advancing in the center because I feel I have a good chance of overwhelming him there with my 3 pawns to his 1 d pawn. And the d pawn is like the figurehead of this position. We want to try to chop that down if possible. White has some advantage here because black still has to solve the issue of the light square bishop. They need to get that piece into the game. I'm not sure about the wisdom of rook e8 in that last position. I mean, it's kind of useful to be able to drop the bishop back to f8. But at the same time, I wonder if it's like the most accurate move on move 8 there. So we're trading on e4. If he plays knight f6, I'll have to decide where to put my queen. Probably queen back to e2 is the move. He plays e5. Okay, so he's going for like a central breakthrough. And in that case, rook e8 makes sense. Now, he is somewhat underdeveloped still. So we may be able to exploit this move order. Just trying to think about what the best way to do that would be. Bishop g5 comes to mind, attacking his queen. If we take the pawn on e5, he'll take with his knight. Not sure we're getting anything there. If c5, he might be able to take on d4, and that's kind of his threat right now. Take on d4, uncovering the rook's attack on the queen. Knight g5 would be nice, but he can easily defend h7 with knight f6. So I'm kind of leaning towards bishop g5 at the moment. If bishop g5, then e takes d4, I can play queen takes d4, and I'd be hitting this bishop a couple times. And I think I'll have a slight lead in development. It might lead to some advantage. Bishop g5, if he plays f6, I can play the bishop back to e3. However, then he could play maybe... Well, I guess he can't really play f5. f5, I can just take the pawn. So, yeah, maybe bishop g5, intending bishop e3 in the event of f6. Could be decent. Now let's go with it. I was looking at ChessBrain2014's stats. So he has 63 wins, 16 losses, 5 draws in the pool for a total of 84 games. Peak rating of 2221, achieved about 10 days ago. Yeah, I think bishop g5 is a reasonable try for the advantage. Connects my rooks together too. Develops our last minor piece. Him playing e5 is kind of forcing the game to an early skirmish. He's trying to open the center and equalize rather than just kind of crouching behind his structure and admitting that white has a space advantage. So against f6, I was planning on dropping the bishop to e3, and I don't see any reason to deviate from that plan, so I'll do it. You know what he could do, though? He can take on d4 and then play bishop c5. I didn't see this initially. Maybe bishop d2 would have been better in this case. That is an oversight on my part. Okay. Well, I kind of have to take on d4 now. Otherwise, I'm probably just losing material. Yeah, so he has bishop c5. Missed this move. It's not a disaster for me, but I very much would have liked to see a different move here. Well, okay, he plays a different move, knight e5. We'll check the analysis afterwards, but I have a pretty strong suspicion that bishop c5 was better there. So what's happening? So if I take on e5, he takes with the bishop. Then if we trade queens, he's attacking that pawn on b2. So that probably isn't anything. I can play rook ad1 to attack this bishop on d6, but I wonder if his idea is bishop g4. So let's say rook ad1, bishop g4, pinning my knight to the rook behind it. Queen takes d6, knight takes f3, bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3. Kind of looks like it's almost dead equal there. I don't see any tactics I would have. Mainly thanks to the hanging rook on d1. No thanks to the hanging rook on d1. What else could I do here? I could play c5. I could move this knight, like knight d2 or something. That might be interesting, actually. Knight d2, trying to come to e4. It does block the d file, though. I don't know about that. I mean, rook ad1 or rook fd1 is so natural here, it just doesn't really promise much. Ooh, wow. Okay, actually, I see a potential idea. That would be cool if this works out. So if rook ad1, bishop g4, what if I play knight takes e5? The idea there would be that if bishop takes d1, I have bishop f7, or bishop d5 check, rather. Then if he takes it, c takes d5, I have queen takes d5 check. And if king f8, queen f7 mate. If king h8, I have knight f7, and he's going to get smothered checkmated. So rook ad1 might work here. Or at least it may not allow bishop g4. Rook ad1, bishop g4, knight takes e5. If he takes back on e5, he loses the bishop on g4. So bishop takes d1, bishop d5 check. Wow. I think for that reason, I am going to go for it. So if he can't play bishop g4, what other moves can he play? I mean, he could move this bishop, like bishop c7 or bishop e7. But that doesn't look too appetizing. I mean, I could trade everything on d8 and maybe still claim an advantage. What else could he play? He could play knight takes f3 check first. Knight takes f3, bishop takes f3. But then he has to make the same decision with this. Well, I'll show that variation after the game because it's kind of a nifty line. Yeah, he's just playing it safe, dropping the bishop back to c7. So we could trade everything. I just don't know if that really leads to anything. I can move my queen too. Like queen c3, let's say, uncovering the attack on his queen. Queen c3, queen e7, rook fe1, maybe in that case. If queen c5, queen e7, we're just trading stuff. Let's say queen takes e7, rook takes e7, bishop c5. Yeah, I doubt if that's any advantage. So I'm thinking queen c3 is probably the way to go here, but then again, I'm not sure if over the next couple moves we'll be able to prove an advantage. What if I go queen c3, queen e7, queen b3, trying to restrict that bishop, like threaten queen takes b7 if it moves? It's an idea. Queen c3, queen e7, and then there's rook fe1 as well, which I've already mentioned. My fear with that is that he'll just play bishop e6, and then you can slide his queen over to f7 if needed. Still, I think I should play this move, so I'll just do it. I probably didn't need to think quite so long on that move, but I'm trying to find a follow-up mainly. It's not queen c3 itself, it's the follow-up. I kind of like queen b3. What if he goes a5 then, though? a5 seems like a good response. Let's say queen b3, a5, rook fe1, a4, maybe queen c2. I don't know. What about rook fe1, bishop e6, and then queen b3? That could be something. Okay, we'll just play the obvious move. He'll probably put the bishop on e6, but such is life. Can't get too far down on time. I mean, I kind of like queen b3 because it hits that b7 pawn, and it is awkward for him to defend. So that's what's pulling me to that move. Plays bishop e5 anyways. So if I play bishop d4, what is his plan? Because then if bishop takes d4, I have rook takes e7, and I will win material. Bishop takes c3, rook takes e8, check. All right, show me what you got. I'm just trying to get a structural advantage. That's all I'm trying to do with this move. He seems okay with it. I'll take. Maybe I can win a pawn and win the subsequent endgame. You never know. Surprised at the speed at which he's making these decisions. Because that last decision didn't seem great to me. Like now I just get a free weakness to play against. Maybe one idea is c5 and stick the rook in on d6. That could be played. He takes with the rook. Okay, so as far as I can tell, I mean, if pawn takes, I have rook e1. And I'm just going to win this pawn on e5. Yeah, I mean, let's just go attack it. And it's same color bishops too. So same color bishops with an extra pawn, you have good winning chances most of the time. This is a little annoying. I mean, I don't think it changes much, but he is trapping my king in. Now, do I take with the queen or with the rook? If queen takes, rook takes, he has rook d8. He's not really threatening mate, but he's threatening rook d2. I think I'd rather take with a rook, first of all. And I might have to play bishop g2 soon in order to get his bishop out of there. Rook f8, he's threatening rook takes f3, deflecting my queen. I can play rook h5 if I want. I think better maybe just to offer a trade of the light square bishops. With the time situation too, it's probably better to do this. So the bishops are coming off the board from the looks of it. So we're going to have an extra pawn, and we'll see what we can do with it in this heavy piece endgame. If he trades, that is. He might not trade. If he plays queen f7, I'll probably play f4. Wonder if I could actually take on h3 in that case. Queen takes f2 check, king h1. Yeah, actually I can get away with that. So he's going to have to do something with this bishop, I think. All right, so queen f7, eyeing this pawn. If I play queen e3, my pawn on c4 drops, so I can't do that. Probably f4 should be played. Props up this rook too. Thing is, now he'll probably shift his focus towards like the d file maybe. Like he'll probably play rook d8. It might be nice in some cases to have that pawn back on f2, but I think with a pawn on f4, it's still interesting. He's really trying to weaken my king very quickly. Well, first things first, let's just defend the c4 pawn so I can free up my queen a little bit. He can play h4, but I'm not too bothered by it, I don't think. I'll play queen e3 in that case. Okay, queen f6. Queen e3 still? Sure. Hitting a7, also getting out of the pin on this diagonal. h4. He's just going to let me take this pawn on a7. Yeah, I don't believe that move. He can play rook d8 and try to counterattack, but queen e3 is going to remind him that rook e8 check is still on the table. Also, b7's hanging. He's playing a little recklessly. Okay, now, so rook e8 check, king h7. Queen back to e3. I could play like that. Let's do queen e3 first, though. We'll just bring this back for defense. So idea is still rook e8. Rook e8, king here, queen e4 check. Try to force further concessions. Now we're 2 pawns to the good. This means that even like rook endgames will be winning. With just the 1 pawn advantage, the rook endgame would have been in doubt. Because so many rook endgames are drawn, even when you're up just 1 pawn. But 2 pawns, especially this situation, he has nothing to show for it. This would be a win for me. I think possibly even the bigger factor is that his king is open. That means I can attack his king as well. It's not just my king that's a bit exposed. I would play rook d7 if I were him, just to have some sort of counterplay, but it really should not work. Let's calculate that. Rook d7, if rook e8 check, I wonder if he can go to f7 in that case. Guess he could. Yeah, he could play rook king to f7. He takes. I might throw in this check just to try to force his king where I want it to go. I'm not sure about allowing that king f8 resource. Yeah, check. Let's throw in this check and just see. Okay, so now if queen e4, he'll play g6 because queen g6 would be losing to rook h8. So queen e4, pawn g6. I mean, later we can go queen e5, but for now it's not going to do anything. So let's just recapture here. If queen b2, queen e2 is fine. Even king h3 would be fine. If rook d7 once again, I'll play queen e4 check, g6, and then I'll decide how to proceed from there. Maybe
Check.
even king h3 in that case. We'll keep this simple for now. Now I'm actually threatening queen h5, so he kind of has to trade queens, doesn't he? Yeah, if he doesn't, queen h5 is pretty much just winning on the spot. Yeah.
Check.
Now he has to go queen h6, and I take his rook on f7. Game over. So, yeah, he had to try holding on to that endgame down 2 pawns, although it probably would not have been successful. I think he began to go astray in this game when he played, where was it, bishop to e5. I forgot what move that was. Move 18. Queen c3, queen e7, then I played rook fe1. I think just bishop e6 would have been all right for him in that case. He's taking a lot of time right now. Well, while he sits there and contemplates his fate. Okay, he did make a move. This is just
Check.
simple enough, and rook g6 next move. Not going to look
Check.
for anything better. Completely unnecessary to look for something when you're this winning. Okay, so let's go back and have a look. So we started with a kind of anti-Slav system. Taking on c4 is critical for black. After that, d takes c4, bishop g2 is played. White castles. White will typically win this pawn back, or will try to at least. But this is an entirely different system. A lot of people play like my opponent did in this game, where they just play to reinforce the d5 point. So I like playing queen c2 on move 4 because I think it is useful to protect that pawn. It's possible to play bishop g2 and offer to gambit again, but I like the queen on c2 in a lot of systems, so I think it's fine. And black still has some work to do before they can equalize in this line, because this light square bishop is always a problem piece. So e4, we open the center. And I'm trying to remember how this previous game that I had went. I think black played bishop e7, if I'm recalling correctly. And then I made a comment in that game against Chess Tempo 2 about how I thought that it would be good to avoid a knight exchange, so I went back to c3. Now, I think it might have been a slightly different position, though. I'm not sure if my queen was on c2 or not. But also interesting is c5, as I came to find out when I read Mauricio Flores' book, Chess Structures, which I reviewed on my channel. So if you're looking for further information on this type of position, check out that book, and also take a look at my game against Chess Tempo 2 on this channel. So he took and then played e5. Let's start up the engine right here. So I think I misplayed it at this point. The engine already thinks black is fine. That's weird. So maybe I shouldn't play e4 so quickly? Or maybe I should go knight g5 in this case. I did think about that briefly. Sometimes you can play knight g5 and only then take on e4 coming up. But based on my previous experience in this line, I just automatically took on e4. But the engine seems to think that black comes out all right after e5. I played bishop g5 as shown. f6. Yeah, and I think bishop e3 is a definite mistake. Bishop d2 should be played instead. This is a common thing, like, you move a piece out, you induce them to make a pawn move. It's usually a bishop coming out to, like, attack a queen. You induce them to make a pawn move, and then you move the bishop back. And what I'm arguing basically is that the inclusion of f6 is favorable for white rather than black. Even though it kind of supports his pawn chain, it exposes his king, especially on this diagonal. And we might be able to use that to our advantage later on. But I think after this line, if he would have played bishop c5, I can't claim any advantage, and I'm probably just worse here. Because he's going to inflict a weakness for free. Now it's like the reverse of what happened in the game. Like, I just have a weak e-pawn without anything else special going on. But fortunately for me, he quickly played knight e5. Let's check out how much time he spent. 12:53. Yeah, he spent 14 seconds. Knight e5. And now I get to double up and attack his bishop on d6. So the line I referred to is if he goes bishop g4, we can take on e5. This was an important line to have analyzed, because if he takes on d1, now we have this bishop d5 check move, which I think wins. Maybe not. Well, I was looking at this, and then this definitely wins. It's forced mate. If king f8, we have queen f7. And if king h8, we have this lovely smothered checkmate. We don't even have to go win the queen. We can go for the smothered checkmate instead. A pattern which I bet most everyone watching this video knows about, but for those of you who are new to chess and are learning tactics, this is a common tactical theme you'll encounter when you're solving problems. So there's that, but I guess king f8 maybe holds for him. That would have been an unpleasant move to have discovered. I didn't see that when I was initially calculating. So knight takes c6, and maybe I still come out on top somehow. Currently I'm down a rook, but he has a lot of stuff hanging. Both rooks are hanging, and his bishop on d1 is hanging. I guess even better, though, the engine was pointing out some other move. After bishop takes d1, just knight takes c6 right away. Okay, so don't even take a pit stop on d5. Just do this. If b takes, again, this bishop takes c6 move. What if I just play rook takes d1? Isn't that also good because of the threat of here and also here? That's also good, apparently. But he played knight takes f3, maybe the best move, and then bishop c7. And I thought a little while here because I couldn't figure out how to keep the advantage. I played queen c3, but maybe trading on d8 is better. Queen takes d8. I thought rook takes d8. Bishop f4. So trying to deflect this bishop from guarding his rook. And then rook takes d1, rook takes d1. If bishop takes here, I'm going to guess that rook d8 is the way to go. Throw in a intermediate check, and only then take the bishop. And then he's pinned. Yeah, and black might be fighting to survive now. Even though white has double pawns, the pin is more important. He can't complete his development like this. So perhaps I could take with the bishop too, but perhaps I could have got an advantage by doing this. It seemed like I should try to keep the queens on the board, though, because by playing queen c3, I gain a tempo on his queen, and I'm trying to use my extra tempo or two I have in development. But yeah, I think right around here, if he would have played like bishop e6, I didn't really see much. Intending to put the queen on f7. I did see bishop h5, the move the computer's suggesting, just to try to induce a weakness, but I didn't really see anything to follow up. Like, yeah, I've forced him to play g6, and his king is a bit open, but what does that amount to? Nothing decisive, that's for sure. So bishop e5 was kind of a rash decision by him. Yeah, he played that in less than 30 seconds. Now after bishop d4, I think he's just much worse. Goes here, I take e5. And probably f takes was even better, because then he might be able to keep this pawn for longer, make me work harder to win that pawn. I was planning a couple different things. Like I mentioned c5, trying to stick a rook in on d6. Also, it looks like rook e3 is good, intending to double and maybe brute force win this pawn. So I took here, he took with the rook. We trade. Bishop h3, so I took on e5 with the rook. I was worried that if I take with the queen, then he can swap and play rook d8. And I'll have some back rank issues to figure out, because if this bishop moves to g2, I lose after rook d1. So that's why I took with the rook and kept the queens on the board for now. And now after this, I know it's a hard defensive task for him. The computer's already showing plus 1.8. But there was no reason, for instance, to like give up the a-pawn in a couple more moves. Like right here, he just does not even respond to the threat of queen takes a7. So that was kind of strange. Yeah, and his counterplay just isn't sufficient.
Check.
Here I wonder if he could have played rook d7 instead of taking on g3, that is. Idea being that if I give a check, maybe just king f7, and I don't have anything on e7 or e6. It's probably not going to save him, but that would have been a better chance. So instead, he takes here. I give a check on e8 and then recapture.
Check.
And for better or for worse, after queen e2, he must trade into this endgame, but it should be losing. After, let's say, rook d7, I probably would have just brought my king up a little bit. I can go through h3 or f3. He can give a check here, but I can bring my king up. Maybe I'll make a break for his 7th rank if allowed. And with an extra pawn on both flanks, I should win. If I had a sample continuation, I would show you, but it really, it'll take a little while, but it's a win for white. But he went back to f6, and after queen h5, you saw what happens. He loses his rook in the game. So I think black played okay in the opening, despite playing pretty fast. It's just that they missed a couple things, like a couple details that I feel like if they spent an extra even, like, 15 seconds, they would have seen. Like here, they missed the bishop c5 move. Bishop e5 was not a good move. Yeah, and after this, the defense was even a little wimpy. I think they could have made it much more difficult for me. So 3 major mistakes, I would say, for black in that one. But not very good opening play by me. I gotta look at this line again. Maybe knight g5 is the way to go. All right, hope you guys enjoyed this game. I'll be back tomorrow with another standard video. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.